Working in marketing is harder than ever now because your brand strategy has to shift continually. It's not like you have a set strategy, you have your brand identity and you run it for 5 years. Now it's every few quarters, every year, you have to shift with what's happening in culture. And so today, we're gonna dive deep into that and dive into these intangibles that there's very little content on in the universe. We're gonna visit some friends and get into it. But I wanna talk about one of our favorite examples of someone that has a adapting brand strategy constantly that you wouldn't think about a lot, and that is Burberry. Can you talk a bit about why they're interesting in that context?
Time feels a little warped when you talk about brand examples like Burberry because they've been around for forever, especially living in the era of D2C when brands have come and gone very quickly. But Burberry is a perfect example of this because when they started by making really good products and having a core theme within their Burberry check and the trench coats that we know and love them for. But I think they got a little bit lost in the sauce of hype cycles and streetwear culture and the commoditization of streetwear at large. And one of the reasons I love Burberry's comeback is because they're finally focusing on the things that actually made them great as a heritage brand. And I think a lot of the customers, both new and old, love them for that. One of the reasons Burberry has been so successful is because they've shifted also back to making content that feels more human-centric in everyday settings. And they've also done a really good job reincorporating the famous Burberry check back into the brand, whether it's commissioning John Paul, the famous content creator who does custom footballs, where they gave him a piece of fabric and he turned it into his own football, to the ad animations that artist Hugh Messi has done with the Burberry check that leads and pans into actual Burberry shop. They've done a really good job utilizing art into their marketing.
Yeah, it makes you want to watch it, it makes you want to engage with it, and it really feels luxury while still being optimized for social, which is like the hardest balance you can do. And I like that you've actually been able to watch a massive legacy brand in real time adapt their strategy, try different social content, say, hey, this isn't working, or the sales aren't there, it's not resonating, and you get to see a new campaign come out. It's fun to be able to like live in that era as a marketer where you can kind of watch these things happen. Today we're gonna roll through New York, talk to some of our friends here about brand strategy and how it works. And I actually love some of the people we're gonna talk to. So we're gonna talk to our friend Ana, who is a former marketing and brand leader at some of the biggest brands in the world, right? Like Banana Republic. And then we're also going to go visit a object shop. I think it's the best way to describe it, from our friends at Craighill. You want to talk a little bit about Ana and why we're excited to talk to her?
Ana is an OG in the brand marketing luxury space. She spent time at places like Esprit and redoing their entire brand overhaul to the work she did with Banana Republic. She's known best for her books, The Business of Aspiration. She's written multiple books already and is known best for her Substack newsletter, The Sociology of Business. Ana is someone who we respect deeply because of the way that she sees marketing, luxury, and brand as a holistic experience, and we're excited to meet her in the West Village.
Yeah, and she's great because she's going to break down how do you approach product, how do you approach culture, how do you approach merchandising, and we're excited to dive into that. And we're also going to talk to Craighill, who's an absolutely fascinating brand. You want to talk a little bit about them and how you discovered them?
Yeah, Craighill is a brand I discovered a few years ago, and they have come onto the scene by focusing on making everyday utilitarian objects feel aspirational in a unique way. And we're going to go to their showroom and studio space where they make all of their content. And one of the reasons we love Craighill so much is because of the way they make their content feel educational and entertaining at the same time, which is a really hard thing to do.
We're going to look at brand strategy through a number of lenses, from people that have worked at the largest brands to someone kind of creating a up and coming, exciting, movement inside a category you probably wouldn't think in that home goods and utilitarian objects. We're excited to do it with y'all. Let's go for a ride. So we're out here in the West Village at the legendary Casa Magazines. Shout out to our guy,
Shouts to
Ali over here, the man.
And then Casa Magazines evolved into Casa Next Door and a coffee shop. Ali, why did you do that?
People always want coffee from me, so I don't have a space over here. So I got the space and I got hardcover coffee books next door. And the people from this neighborhood love these ideas. So whatever people demand in this neighborhood, I will do it.
Oh, Ali is the best.
This is also where you can find the last copy of...
more coming soon.
More on the way soon. How Brands Influence Culture by our friend Ana Andjelic, who we're happy to chat with. Just about overall brand strategy, but I think stepping back before we dive into more tactical things, I want you first to tell us about the book and how you came upon the idea for it and what are the sort of larger themes and philosophies.
in the book?
So this book came from my work as the Chief Brand Officer at Banana Republic and Esprit. So the previous book was The Business of Aspiration. Was basically when I was working in agencies focusing on luxury fashion lifestyle brands, and it was more about what is modern luxury, how is aspiration changing, how are people signaling their status and spending their money. But then when I started building those brands, rebuilding those brands, like for Banana, we did the rebrand that led to 24% comparable sales growth, which is amazing. For Esprit, it was a big comeback to the US, big restructuring in Europe. You know how all my writing is usually, I first do it in practice and then I write about it. So it was literally at Esprit hiring a team from 0 to 150 for the global market. And it was mostly realizing that brand marketing, as it is right now, needs to be redefined as a strategy of cultural influence. So I literally broke it down. What does that mean? How to develop that cultural influential story? What is that story? It's not the brand promise.
Yes.
Like Lego's brand promise is building the builders of tomorrow, but their cultural influence is through play. And they have played through, say, entertainment, through movies like with Pharrell, through their podcast, through content, through their events, through literally everything they do as a brand is basically how they influence culture. Although we did, Ali, when I was at Banana at Esprit, we bought so many ads. Vogue, Bazaar, Elle, Officiel, it was all here. So we did, that's important. But then you think about how do you complement that with merch, with collaborations, experiences, content, community management and everything.
Yeah, one of the things that I think we appreciate about your perspective on brand marketing in a modern sense is that you take a more holistic approach to seeing all the different components of marketing as a big flywheel and how they all work together. And you were alluding to that a little bit, so would love to hear more about just the way that you see the different components of marketing and how they all influence each other and work together instead of seeing them as siloed things.
I'm glad that you brought that up because that was also my experience in working at both of these big companies is just saying they can't be anymore like those silos. When you say, hey, this company, how does it make money and how does it exert cultural influence? Well, how is that story participating in the overall story that is culture? So you look at like what is the connection between marketing and merchandising. And you work very closely with merchandisers. Say, oh, these are the hero products, this is the collection, this is the foundation, these are the different personas that we need, these are the different channels, this is how we are connecting the content and the selection of those products in those different channels. And then you work with product design. Design was in both companies under me because you can't tell a story if you're not telling it through product. And imagine when you say, hey, this product is going to do really well on Instagram. That means that you go all the way to the design process. You're not retrofitting marketing and making it a success in a go-to-market stage. You're doing it at product creation stage, at design, So that was unbelievably important. And then you talk with the retail channels because not retail channels are created equal. And then you say, how does the fact that I have wholesale here amplify the fact that I have franchises there and website here and direct-to-consumer store here, And that means like, what is that experience that customers are going to discover products and how do you make those products desirable in those different channels?
Who is this person that's sort of running between all of these different departments and how has that changed?
You're looking at that person is, I think that's
what are the traits that person needs?
That's like chief brand officer, but they need to have a very strong business component. So I would say it's like a brand president or a CEO.
Sure.
That's a CEO, really.
Yeah. Leaning a little bit more into the creative direction side, we've seen creative direction evolve so rapidly and I think it's become a bit convoluted with just the rise of social, maybe cheapen the experience of what a creative director is. And so I'm curious from your perspective, like what is the role now and where do you see it going in the future?
Again, it's about cultural influence and it's about like you can stay at the level of like visual handwriting, which is unbelievably powerful. But and in this visual culture is insanely impactful. But then you think about all the different surfaces, all the different languages and lexicons that's going to be part of. But then beyond that, when you say, well, can this creative idea live as a coffee shop, as I don't know, newsletter, newsstand, or so it's kind of like not constraining yourself because look, for example, what Coperni is doing for their upcoming show in March in Paris. They have like some gaming space there, and some of that is absolutely gimmick, but at the same time, that's kind of like how are you going to tell that story, like Jacquemus and iPhone, So it's kind of like, again, there are a lot of ways to be creative these days, but at the end of the day, it's like we don't live in a time of hype anymore. We live a time of spectacle. And spectacle is something big and massive and consistent and
Something I wanted to ask you about too.
Yes.
So tell us about, society of
you
spectacle.
know how hype is like slowly growing, it goes from subculture and it's like drops and it's kind of like, and it's very limited. But when you have spectacle, you have something that is global for a second, like the Olympic Games. But spectacle is consumed through memes, through those little contests, like Olympic Games were done like that. They were consumed through these little snippets of content, not by being there or watching NBC or whatnot.
I mean, it's become a core strategy for a lot of brands, or at least a lot of brands who get it, right? You
well,
know
even
that you need to
Coperni
stay.
is a spectacle, you know what I mean? So you're right.
It is. Yeah, I mean, Pharrell is also a timely example of this too, right? And the reason he was hired, or one of the reasons
He's
why
the
he was
best
hired, right?
producer in the world.
Yeah, it's not.
So you need to, creative production is putting it all together.
And he connects the dots in a way that I think most people can't do. And that counts for something for a brand. Like, go to the shows in Paris, you see the types of people that are attending and the people who are dressed and styled for it. Like, it's on the whole production is on a different level. And I think creating those ripple cultural moments.
Look at Prada. You said you were at menswear shows. They were like that scaffolding. And they were like, you know, like, so that is something that you kind of put all your money in and then the next, because you know how hype is like bubbling, you know. So.
We're all hyped out, I think, in a
what
different
do you
way.
think, Oren?
I think that we need to start thinking about what comes after spectacle pretty quick.
Oh, I don't think there is anything after spectacle. There is
all these moments are happening at once. Everyone's fatigued of them. They remember them less and less. It's at some point that ROI just drops to the point of what it takes to generate spectacle.
Yeah, but you see how spectacle is generated is on micro. And you have aggregation of all those micro. You know, all those moments that people were consuming in Olympic Games, they were never consuming the games. You know, you didn't like look at linear TV or you were there and you were just those little snippets and that was past. I think the spectacle is going to stay for a minute, but you know.
So for instance, like Jacques Mousse with iPhone, you have this moment, everyone talks about it.
That's it. And that's it. But that's it. That's why it's spectacle, because it's like 1 second.
So say you have every brand now putting more and more into let's make that spectacle. You have those seconds, but the value of it goes down. And then it's okay, how can you generate that spectacle less and less cost?
Totally. I think people are also going to take their attention back. So it's going to be things like this, like literally analog things, and and I think it's very like timely that we are actually in a magazine store, because you know everyone is like print is back. I don't think that's true. I do think that like nichification of everything, you do have like circulation is small, but it's again community talking to each other, which I think is much healthier than having the broadcasting model.
It's also above the algorithm. Like everyone's pulling the same references, the same examples. Whereas in here, I just want to go grab as many things as possible because I know others don't have.
Yesterday we were with our friends over at Welcome JPEG, which is like the Internet Archive account of the hour, similar to like what Hidden New York is doing, but where they focus on aggregation and reposting from Tumblr and all these accounts. Like Welcome JPEG does a really, really good job of like curating the internet. But even still, you just get lost in the feed. And so they just launched their first ever coffee table book, where it's them basically curating their favorite moments from the internet, because the stuff just gets lost in Pinterest and Tumblr. But then if you have a print book to say, this is the best stuff that we curated from over the last year, and then you have the next 10 years of issues of that, then it creates a little more permanence. So one of the things that I find that I think a lot about, and Oren thinks a lot about, is how brands can navigate the current zeitgeist in a holistic way really well. And I'm curious, from your perspective, what are those brands? And they can be small independent brands that you see and really appreciate, or it could be larger ones that have been navigating just the current zeitgeist that we're in right now.
Well, I think that there is one thing with navigating zeitgeist, and the other thing is having a really good product. And you see On Running, for example, they were like, we are not here, they said the same thing as Ali. They're like, we're not here to make money. They wanted to be a $10 million company. They're now valued at $7 billion. You know what I mean? But they were like, we just want to make the best shoe in the world. That's what they wanted to do. And they went to Nike, they went to Adidas, they went to and they were like, no, we are doing something else. And they're like, then we have to make it ourselves, And they did. And then Roger Federer wore it, and then one thing led to another. But what they started is just focus doing one thing and do it the best.
Because then they layered all the experience on top of it once it became.
But that brand was founded in 2010, long time ago. But they were just like, no, make the best running shoe for runners, because Olivier is one of the founders, is triathlete and endurance runner and so on. So I do think that's more important than zeitgeist when you look about think about it, because then you have brands like Levi's or Doc Martens that created those original products, but then kind of lost their way because they started more. So I think as On grows, it's going to be, good to see how they're going to add categories and so on. So brands should be thinking about that. What are my hero products? Look what Burberry is doing.
Yeah.
They're going back to trenches and they're going back to scarves.
Yep.
What they're known for, as they should. They're known for amazing technical outerwear. Stone Island, yes, community is a form of research around those parkas. Things are really simple, actually.
I have this feeling that like independent, upstart, luxury or luxury focused brands, or people who just make really good product, like that is also the future too, because we're going to get tired of it in a sense and then want to go back to something that feels more permanent.
Always the few, and it's always that steady. So like On, again, going back, it was like, we're going to serve 10,000 people, 100,000, who want that? And then you grow from there. Because if you chase spectacle, then you spend all your money on that. You don't spend your money on product innovation. And that's like what happened to Nike at the end of the day. Stop innovating, people are going to catch up on that.
We're out here in Greenpoint, Brooklyn at the wonderful Craighill studio, and with me is my guy Henry, who is part of the content team at Craighill. And first and foremost, just wanted to get a sense of your role at the company and what it is that you do on the creative side.
Yeah, so I guess my title is video producer, content creator, and basically my job is to just make videos about what we do here at Craighill.
One of the things that I've found most interesting in your approach to content is this shift towards like educational first content, where you're showcasing the functionalities and the features of your products, which Craighill products are by nature utilitarian and functional, and they do serve a specific purpose. But the educational side has been really interesting to watch. I'm curious, like, how did you land on that format for content? What was the workflow or the process like that, where you arrived there?
It was this video about 4-bar mechanisms. So we were experimenting with product and we were like interested in 4-bar mechanisms. And I was having a discussion with Hunter, and he was just basically describing something that they were already working on. I was just interested in it, so I thought other people would be. We 3D printed some like ways to help describe that concept. We made a video about it and kind of asked for some feedback about that thing. And people were really interested. We got a lot of engagement, a lot of comments, a lot of people just like excited to like learn this thing and wanting to contribute to it. And I think that was, I don't know, how it happened. It's just like I was interested in it, Hunter was interested in it, and we just like showed it to people.
There's a lesson in that of trying to force your way into content and try so hard to find the right formats, and often it's just the bare bones simplicity of like being interested in a specific topic, something that you can listen to someone nerd out. That is sometimes the stuff that performs the best because it doesn't feel like you're trying. So you just took that format and you've now just kind of repeated it over and over and over again with the content. And when you think more strategically about the content itself, what are the workflows or what's the process side of content that you think through that helps you get more idea generation going within that workflow?
Just having a shooting schedule, like the most essential thing by far to like making good videos, or at least in the last like 3 months, has been having a shooting schedule. I have meetings with Hunter, Zach, and Kevin 3 times a week, and we discuss a video idea, and then I have another time with them where we shoot that idea. And it's just about like being quick and like turning over a lot of different things, because sometimes we have a great idea and then people aren't interested, and that's okay. But we're okay with that because we know another video is going to come the week after. That has been like extremely helpful for us, setting up those times.
So I'm curious, are there any guardrails that you live by when it comes to filming content?
One rule that I've developed for myself, and I'll use this also when I'm like discussing ideas with people, is through the whole video process, can we describe the video in 1 sentence? And the shorter the sentence, the better. But that's like a rule that we've started to follow and has been super helpful. Sometimes the idea just gets too big, and when you're making short form video, if you can't be succinct with it and explain it in 1 sentence, then people are just going to be confused and they're going to swipe. And then the second thing, which is harder, is can you put that 1 sentence in the first 3 seconds of your video? And that's something we're getting better at, where we can basically the first 3 seconds with a visual and whatever text is overlaid on that, it can like kind of encapsulate the whole story. People are going to know in the first 3 seconds if they're interested or not. So really like nailing that hook in combination with already having like a clear idea has been super helpful for us. And then talking about the kind of the uniqueness of the content, I would say we were just doing what we like to do.
For me, the first thing that stands out with your social content is the way that you've made this shift into educational content first, which is clearly a trend that consumers want and are willing to follow. And I'm just curious, how did you land on that piece of content as the driving force for what's been most successful on your Instagram account?
I think it probably starts with the fact that we're kind of like, we're nerds.
Yeah.
We care a lot about the why behind the products. There's so many things in the world that are really beautiful, but without understanding the kind of like backstory as to how they got created, it's hard to appreciate them. Mm-hmm. And we spend so much energy in our design team here, Hunter, Kevin, Wallman, spend so much energy taking things further and further with all these little justified decisions about like, let's change this for this specific reason. When they start getting into like why they made those decisions, it's super interesting. And so we just had this insight that like, if they care about it, if we care about it, if it's like so central to our DNA, there have to be other people out there that also care about it. And so let's just start talking about the things that we actually talk about on a daily basis on video.
It's like letting us inside your brain, being a fly on the wall of conversations that you have about product decisions that to the naked eye, to the average consumer, mean nothing at all, but to you or someone who's designing the actual product, they mean everything. They make a huge difference. What are some of the considerations that you have when it comes to filming content?
When you start sharing that decision-making process, people start to care about things, and we see this in the comments on the videos all the time. People start caring about things. They're like, I never knew that I was gonna care about a ruler the way I care about this ruler now, because you just broke down like the many months of decisions that went into creating this beautiful object. And so, yeah, it enriches the perception of the thing. And I think it also, like, we think about this a good bit, but like, is it entertaining? Is it like fun to watch? Is it educational? Like, is there some element of this that you can then go tell your friend, hey, I just found out about this cool new idea? And then is it inspiring? Like, is there something about what you watch that maybe makes you want to go make something yourself? And so giving people that kind of energy to feel, yeah, like a sense of possibility of like, I too could make kind of a weirdo product design brand or whatever it is your thing is, like you're gonna go write a book or something like that.
I love that.
Yeah, we decided we were gonna try to crack the code on organic content because we had this insight that like these platforms exist. If you can figure out how to harness the algorithm, you can get in front of tons of additional people. But then what we found beyond that is if you have organic videos that are performing really well and you put money behind those as ads, you can find traction. And we're finding for the first time like serious traction with ads just as a function of making really good organic videos a long time.
How do you think about the business from a marketing perspective holistically? Because you've got your wholesale accounts, you've got your website, you've got your social. These are all just touch points for how to reach potential customers, new customers, existing customers. How do you see the marketing function at Craighill work? How does it operate? Is it a work in progress? Are there things that you have your hands in? Tell me a little bit more about the way you think about marketing, and what are some of the tactics or workflows or things that you think you need to implement to keep it running more successfully?
I think about marketing holistically. It's a little cliche, but it's true. It's telling stories. And we're definitely doing that on the social side now. We've been doing that longest on email, doing a lot of writing and giving people like more to read than maybe a lot of brands put forward.
Yeah.
I'm a person who likes to consume information and like have a deeper story to perceive. And so to give people as much insight as possible into some of the more kind of fine details, and they can take it or leave it. Like if there's a really long email and you open it and you're like, I'm not about to read this, that's cool.
That's okay.
But to give people more meat on the bone, to be like, there is more here for you to get into if you're curious. The thinking there, and this ties into the educational stuff with the video too, it gives people like more to remember, like more to think about and more to kind of develop a personal connection to, rather than just beautiful object. Like there's so many brands that make beautiful objects that I really like, but I don't have a sense of their personality.
Yeah.
And so when I'm in the market for that type of product, I don't immediately think of them. But then there are other brands that have given me so much information about who they are. We were just talking about this earlier, but like East Fork is a great example.
Yeah.
When I want to buy ceramics, they live in my brain because of all the things that they do that are outside of their ceramics. And so we try to do something similar to have like a fully three-dimensional personality that's about curiosity, ingenuity, like making new things, discovering new things, learning. And the more people perceive that that's what we're into and they feel like values aligned with those ideas, when they're like, oh, I need a cool desk accessory for my sister's boyfriend,
I want to stay top of mind.
Craighill.
Yep.
That's where we go.
Digging a little bit deeper on the email front, that sounds like a channel you take very seriously, and you pride yourself in being able to groom and nurture and build relationship, which I think is a perfect medium and format for content through email.
Yeah.
And it's often where a lot of brands find that they can convert potential customers into being a customer, and also existing customers to become even more loyal customers. So how do you think about email as a channel? How do you use content in a way that helps make it more compelling for people to not only read and digest the content, but ultimately convert them into buying something from your website?
We think about marketing time. We think about the funnel, right? We think about when do people discover us? Are they aware? Are they interested? Do they desire the thing? And then are they willing to take action? Usually on email, we're more conscious of the desire and the action. I think that we also increasingly are trying to feed the person who has come to us from social and is really new to the brand. When it comes to like actually like converting, trying to get someone to buy, usually what we find is that the more specific and the more detailed we are, again, this is what we're doing on social too, but about the product and about the decision making that went into the product, but then also specifics of how it might improve their life, like how they can live with it, you know, where in their life is it going to live? Is it replacing a less good version? Giving someone insight with kind of an empathetic perspective to how does this do a better job, maybe not in terms of like saving time, but in providing additional joy in the act of using the product. Like, is it more pleasant to use this thing than the one that you've had? And we do our best to like inhabit the perspective of the person that would then benefit from the product and get them to see it and be like, okay, yeah, I want that thing. It goes beyond that too though, because like we do other things on email. We've been sending an email newsletter for like almost 6 years. It's called The Amalgam. And this is just like a rundown of things we've been reading, watching, listening to, and then are kind of the amalgam, which is just like interesting ephemera on the internet. I do a lot of like kind of weird writing in that email. We highlight things that we're doing here, like what's new, what new products are coming. And we get consistent feedback from our friends, but also from customers that like us putting them onto the cool stuff, whether it's like a new song or a new movie, like an obscure movie from the past, or even a new movie, there's value again in that. Like we try to think about it like, if you have like a cool older sibling who's always trying to like put you onto cool new stuff, we try to do the same thing for our customers. They then trust our broader sense of taste so that it's not just about like buy this product, but it's more like this is just what we're into and we think you might like it also. So then when we are ready to put something in front of them to potentially buy, we've already established some level of credibility and trust, and also just goodwill, where like we have been giving something to our audience for free. We're like, we put a lot of time and energy into making this thing. You can have it. Now when we put something forward for sale that you might want, you maybe feel like, not in a negative way, but like a little indebted. You're like, I like these people. I feel committed to this. This is already like part of the way that I see myself. And I want to have this on my desk or in my pocket or wherever.
So we talked a lot in this video about brand strategy and what brands can be doing to actually make sure they're doing something that stands out, all the way from product to cultural involvement to tactics. But how do you actually implement this? What can you do today inside your company to make something happen? This is when I want to talk about the brand planning exercise. This is an important thing every brand should be doing. It doesn't have to be the beginning of the year, beginning of the quarter. Get your team in a room and do this exercise. It starts with a calendar. You're going to go through your entire year and then highlight what happens. I want you to do this with a combination of sales data, like if you have D2C data or retail data, actually pull your weekly data, and then fill in all of your big moments. So for instance, if you want to map out all your sales data, look at where your top sales moments are, look at where your top sales weeks are, and say, okay, what happened? Is this something that happens every month? Seasonality, consumers are always going to be there. Is this something where we did something that we should repeat? And then look at the lull. Say, okay, why is this a lull? Is this something where we should actually try to do something, or is this something where we can't control it? And can't control what's important. I worked with a surf brand for years that would always try to make the winter work, and it never worked because guess what? People are not interested in buying surf in the winter, no matter how hard you market in Australia and Miami. But then we're actually going to go through and say, all right, we need moments. We want to fill in all the holidays we want to embrace. What's our Valentine's Day plan, our product plan, our marketing plan? What do we do in summer? What do we do for spring break? What do we do for back to school? Everything relevant to your specific niche. Put that all on a big whiteboard going across these months. I'll even break it down by week. And from that calendar, you're going to see all these opportunities. You're going to say, hey, we have nothing in this particular month. And you got to have some decisions to make and say, what can we engineer? There's a lot of brands that have their own holidays. They have their own things that they've made up to help them generate sales, with a big live event or like some influencer thing where they all go on an island, or we have our summit with our customers. They do that to help fill these gaps in sales. Then you're going to go a level deeper. You're going to look at your brand like a TV show. You're going to say, who are our characters? Who do we have on our team that talks on camera? Who do we have in our influencer network? Who are the people that represent our brand to the world? Then you're going to have your sets. Where do these people film? Do we show our offices? Do we show our factories? Do we have specific build outs and trade show events or places we do campaigns? Like, what does our universe look like? And then we have the arc, the storylines. You have your calendar here, but what actually happens? Are there big product releases? Do you have all the traditional plot devices of television? Whether that's, hey, we have enemies we're fighting against, we're positioning against unhealthy fruit, or a competitive brand, or some really specific thing that matters to your customers. And then the same thing with who are your friends, who are your collaborators, who are the people that you may be able to have a moment in time with as other brands or other people that can engage in that story. So now when you have that calendar, you have your people that talk about it, you have the places where you can talk, and you have your big plot devices from product launches to when your competitors might launch products, all together. You can actually begin to have a calendar of moments and strategies that you can develop to be able to think holistically about where your brand can go. And the last thing I want you to really think about is if you search, and we'll put a graphic up here, is this idea of 12 brand archetypes, where over years we've always had this idea of brands need to have an identity of how they relate to their consumers, of the voice they want to have in the world. And this 12 brand archetype structure is one that many marketers know, but you have to decide, is your brand fit into any of these or is something else? And I find a lot of brands who go through the last exercise and don't really know what to do or get lost in it is because they haven't picked a voice for their brand or an angle for their brand. While these 12 may not be perfect, it may not be the end all, it is a starting point to think about what is the angle with which our brand sees the world. And I would encourage you to search for it, dig it up, and see how it applies to your brand for the future. I'm Oren at Oren Meets World. I've been doing this with Clayton, who's going here and doing these interviews with us. We run a newsletter together called Hyper. Big shout out to Air for helping us put this together and for really caring about what creative operations look like for brands in the modern day. We're excited to see you on some of the remaining episodes.